Hello, and welcome back to Off the Rack Rebellion, the show where we talk about costuming and how you take everyday finds and incorporate them into your everyday cosplay. Hands. Hi, Kate. How's it going?
Hi, Billy. Good. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm doing all right. It's a little warm
Yeah.
here today, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's not as warm as the States.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. Tell me about it. Absolutely. We actually were joking because, I don't know if y'all remember, but last time we recorded, I had just gotten back from vacation. My husband and I are like, we should go somewhere really extra hot the beginning of the summer every year because this doesn't feel so bad now.
Oh,
like
you
trick
come back and you're like,
ourselves.
oh, this is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then we were just down in Bend, Oregon last weekend where it hit 100 while we were there. And we
Oh,
were like,
no.
our friends are
In
trying to get us to move.
Oregon?
And yeah, our friends are trying to get us to move down there. I have 4 friends, actually more than that. I have like quite a few friends that live down there. And we're like, ooh, maybe not. I'm like, I'd like a little more of an indoor setting, please.
Yeah, definitely. I'm way more suited for that.
Yeah, totally. So it was a big week. Like with the Acolyte wrapping up, I feel like everyone kind of had a bit of a big week.
Yeah, I think there was like a collective like exhale moment.
Yeah. Well, and
Everyone's like,
also a
okay.
collective like, but wait.
Yeah, yeah, true.
come,
Very true.
come
Very true.
back.
We
Totally.
we won't be sort of recapping the show.
Yeah.
Please visit our space dads over at Dad
Yeah.
Batch at their podcast because I'm sure they're gonna wrap up that show themselves. So if you're
Mhm.
looking for that, that's not gonna
Mhm.
find that here. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
touch on it a little bit, but we're getting into the costumes this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So excited because we did our quick little recap of just the trailers, which
yeah.
there was so much in just the trailers. So this entire show, I've kind of been losing my mind, like watching these different. I just couldn't wait to talk about it. I was just so
Yeah.
excited.
I'm glad that we didn't see every costume in the trailers because
Yeah.
I was very happy when I saw a certain particular one, and
Okay.
that made me go crazy, and
Okay.
now I need one.
I think I definitely was that way with the costume as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I can't wait to hear like what your like, oh my god,
Okay,
I want it, I need it is. Yeah.
okay.
Where do you want to start? Like, I've got some notes, but where do you want to start?
Well, first off, I think we should say that we sort of went down the article that was on
Mhm.
StarWars.com. Is that right? With
Yes.
Jennifer Bryan, the costume designer,
Yes.
behind everything that we saw. It was amazing to get the stories and inspirations and what was used from her own,
Mhm.
like from her own voice. I thought that was incredible,
Yes.
and I loved that she included some tips for people that might want to cosplay.
I did too.
We just had it in the chat where everyone was asking about uh, Kimir's, is that his name? Yeah.
Mhm.
About his cloak, and everyone was like, "Is it leather? Is it what
Mhm.
is it? What is it?" And she actually said it
Yeah,
in the article, which was great. Anyway,
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go. Let's go top to bottom from your
Yeah.
notes. You
From your
added a
notes?
bunch in
Absolutely.
here. I read through them, and I read the article, obviously, right before
Right?
this. So,
Yeah, friends, I
um,
was taking notes, like, writing notes in our shared Billy and I have a shared document. I was literally writing notes for 3 hours yesterday because I was like, "I don't wanna forget anything," because there's so many details that I just went crazy over.
yeah,
And I feel like we should start with the Jedi, right? This is a
it's a
show kind
Jedi
of about
story,
the
right? We should
Jedi,
start with the
right? It's a
Jedi.
Jedi
Yeah.
story. Absolutely. And I for one and she, was mentioned in this article about how, yeah, like, she incorporated this color, kinda somewhere between turmeric and mustard,
Hmm.
um, and I felt like that addition of color took it from space monk to made it more of a feel of, like, knights. Like, you think of old
Yeah.
knights with their tabards, with their colors. To me, that, like, amplified that and showed me that it was a different era
Yeah.
in the story of this group of these people, right? And I loved that she mentioned how she used different colors, for different characters, still in the same
Hmm.
family, and that there were some different color sashes utilized to kinda denote different ranks and just these
Different
different little
fabrics
subtle
too.
nuance. Yeah, different fabrics. She really got into
Yeah.
if you haven't read this article, go read this article because it was
It's
so
good.
good.
It's really good.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was awesome. But yeah, I loved that, and I love that she discussed, like, Yord was very fastidious and, like, she really
Mhm.
wanted to show that as opposed to somebody like maybe like Saul, who's a little bit more hands-on on the ground, that kinda stuff. So that was really interesting. What did you think about the looks?
Yeah, I liked, that it went into showing not only personality, but also ranks, and I know
Mhm.
you have that in your notes.
Yeah.
There's definitely you can kinda tell who's a Jedi Master, who's a knight, who's a Padawan
Mhm.
by their look, and you
Mhm.
kind of couldn't before, aside from, like, a Padawan braid. The
Mhm.
knights and the masters looked exactly the same. If you
Mhm.
look at someone like Obi-Wan and someone like, uh, you know, Mundi
Mhm.
or anyone on the council, like, they dressed exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was cool to see that. It was cool to see well, this era, I don't know if you read the books, but, this era, what I love is that they kind of do show a lot of personality, not only in what they wear, but in how they use the Force. If you
Okay.
noticed in the show, they
Mhm.
all have sort of different abilities, or at the very least, different things that they're better at.
Mhm.
Um, and and that was great to see it in live action because
Yeah.
that was really represented in the costumes, I think.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I like that she was able to show that. One other thing that I noticed, and, it wasn't mentioned at all by her or anybody else, but did you notice that the Jedi's robes, actually, their hoods were all just a slightly different style as well even? Like, I
I
kept
think so.
looking between Sol and Andara, and I kept being like, "God, their hoods aren't attached on the same way."
Right.
Like, just I think me as a costumer, I kept going like, "Where's that seam?" Which
Yeah.
and it might have played into, like, just one thing I was talking with somebody about recently is how different costumes will fit, or a costume will fit different people in different ways,
Mhm.
given your body proportions. And so I
Yeah.
wonder if also that was something that the costumer looked at, being like, like, you are taller, you have wider shoulders, you have narrow shoulders. I don't know.
Right.
Just something to think about, and something my
Yeah.
eye always goes to.
And I don't wanna, like, speculate too much, but I think there's something, and this might just be completely serendipitous, but, like, there's something about how the Jedi Order starts their decline and
Mm,
become more and more uniform.
okay.
So maybe there's something in play there. I don't know if that was intentional,
Yeah.
um, but in seeing the visuals, you can kind of, I don't know, you can kind of infer that. I don't wanna, like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a headcanon guy, so I don't wanna, like, do that, but, there's something about that. There's something about that
Okay.
individuality being stripped away during this era and
Yeah.
into the sort of prequel era where everyone
Okay.
kind of just has a uniform,
Yeah, space
essentially.
monks, right? Like, yeah, for
Yeah, and
sure.
then from then on, it just kind of
Mhm.
anyway, yeah.
For sure.
I think
Well, and
that's
then
really
going into that, like, that personal style, I liked seeing Vernestra's Senate robes at that
yes.
very end of it. I mean, my jaw dropped. I was having a hard time focusing on the dialogue because I
Yeah,
was, like, so glued to that gown and that cloak, and that was luckily mentioned in this article. Was it "Dressing the Acolyte" was the name of the article on
I
StarWars.com?
think so.
And how, like, that basket weave wool used for kinda like
Mhm.
that open shoulder cloak was, like, had, like, metallic fibers mixed into it, and it was from Spain and all this stuff, and, like,
The
reading that article.
embroidery, yeah,
Yes. So that
yeah,
so that whole look to me jumped out as a very medieval cut. I got real excited about that one. And, like
yeah,
that, she's got kinda like that tighter fitting underdress, which was a very, like, 14th to 15th century England and Europe, and then the symbols, like the Jedi symbols, Jedi Order symbols reminded me a lot of, the placement of turtle brooches in Viking
mhm.
wear, where, like, the turtle brooches are more of an oval, but, it just all really, like,
Yeah,
triggered my mind. I was like, "I've seen
it
this
it
somewhere before. This is
it's usually
amazing."
something that would hold a cape together.
Yeah,
They're usually
yeah.
sort of an open circle, aren't they, with, like, a
Yeah.
pin
Well,
or
that's a
something.
panannular, which
Okay.
which also was definitely used in different eras and different, like, around, right, the British Isles and like
Yeah.
and Europe and things like that. But these turtle brooches, you got to look them up, and I'll share some. We're gonna share some photos of things on our Instagram.
Mhm.
They're really intricately carved because they have like the knotwork in them. They're beautiful,
Yeah.
and so that's just
Oh,
like
okay, yeah.
that
Very nice.
elaborate emblem right there. And they do, you're right, like they hold up this like apron dress, or they pin it to the
Right.
underlayer. And I was like, oh my god, the placement is like just like that.
Well, I
Um,
think I
yeah.
think because this era is sort of, longer ago, even
Mhm.
more long ago.
Yeah, yeah, right?
um, I
A
think they're
longer time ago in a
I
galaxy
know.
far
I think they're
away.
trying to evoke some kind of, um, some of that imagery.
Absolutely.
They want us to see this as something that is older, almost if the original trilogy is here and now, then those are more sort of period pieces. And I think the
Yes.
prequels were one step, and then this is even a way further step.
Yeah, totally.
So I think they're obviously playing with these visual cues to get us to look at it in that way. These are old
Yeah.
timey times,
Yeah,
you know.
right? And I got that,
Yeah,
and that was one of those outfits. There's a couple others, and I put notes in there, but that was, like, one of the major ones. I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah. I feel like this is, like, a throwback to something." And it was
yeah,
so funny because I was like, that I feel like it could've, like, when this show was coming out, I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's kinda like a Star Wars, Lord of the Rings," like a Star
right.
Wars medieval mashup. I love this, and that outfit, I was like, "Bingo." And like I said, there's a couple others I'll talk about, but that one really drove it home for me.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting also is that this era and this time, the Jedi are very entrenched in the sort of galactic sort of politics. They're
Mhm.
in the government.
Yeah,
They're a part of. While in the prequels, they're kind of a bit more outside, and the Senate is doing
mhm,
their thing, and they are sort
mhm.
of their own entity. In this era, they're very sort of interwoven. So
Yeah,
the idea that she has Senate robes, period, I think is
yeah,
kind of again, another visual step to kind of tie the Jedi with with the Senate and with
right,
actually the government, if you want to call it that. And we were
right.
talking about this in our Burgundy Squadron chat, where we were trying to figure out what the symbol is for this era, and they are one and the same. That is the
Oh,
symbol for the Senate. That is also the symbol for the Jedi. They
oh, I didn't
share the same
realize
one,
that.
as far as we know.
Okay,
Right now, they share the same one. So I don't
okay,
know if there is a split somewhere, or if we just haven't seen enough of the Senate of this era, and maybe they do have their own symbol. But from the books, I do think that it seems that way. It seems they are
okay,
very interconnected. So
gotcha.
it's Jedi's don't have Senate robes, you know. They
Yeah,
come in
yeah,
as Jedi. So
right?
the fact that they even exist, I think, says a lot about the
Yeah.
era as well.
Which
Yeah.
is so interesting because the Jedi like looking at the prequels or something, there's not costume changes, like Yoda's
No.
not doing a costume change, you know what I
No.
mean? And so that was like, yeah, another interesting level to these characters. I like that. Um, so yeah, that was just fascinating for me. Um, the the
May.
next ones, I know, May and Osha because they started swapping clothes.
Right,
I
right.
was
Well, they're
like,
sisters, right? I mean,
I
they're
know,
in each
right?
other's closets, right?
Exactly. Which is why I was glad I never had a sister, never had to fight over clothes. Oh yeah, but I loved it kind of like, should we work from the beginning and go back chronologically, or just say whatever we loved?
I however you want, but I
Okay.
think what I would like to say is that I love that the first thing that we see her in, which is very samurai inspired, very
Mhm.
Ronin inspired.
Yes.
I love that she's wearing a lot of purple on it, and I think that's to sort of pay homage to her, where she came from, and her
Yeah.
family and her mother, and all of that. I think that's very cool. Again, going back to what you were saying, like uh, color being a big part of this. Almost like I just finished watching like all of Game of Thrones for the first time.
Oh,
We
okay.
we
Oh,
did it in a
wow.
week, so I
Oh,
know we
wow.
we did nothing but that for days, right?
Oh my
And we
gosh.
just finished it day before yesterday. And the houses all have their colors and
Mhm.
their sigils and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, I think they're sort of pulling from those kind of old timey medieval kind of
Yeah.
things and fantasy worlds, to kind of evoke that old timiness. And I think the color work in this does the same. The purple
Yes.
is obviously the Anasaia house, and then these sort of mustards, if you can call the Jedi
Mhm.
a house, would be
Yes.
theirs.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was exactly, it hit me as well in that scene where we do, well, the couple scenes that we see the whole coven of witches, and I was like, "Oh, that purple cloak," and then they did mention that in that dressing the
In the
acolyte
article.
article, and I was like, "Yes, I knew it."
Yeah.
Which it was a fascinating, they did mention in detail that that was that coat or cloak that we see was patchworked from different cottons and, like,
Hmm.
then dyed and then made into the garment. I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." Like,
Yeah.
I love the layers of the creation of the costume and, like, hearing about that,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. So, it's
Yeah.
still one of my favorite articles from the whole that coat. I want it so bad. So, yes. And then we see her a lot. We see May a lot in then the that civilian poncho that then when she
Oh,
swaps. Let's talk about that poncho.
I that is, I saw that and it was like a kick to the stomach. Like I was like, I need that
Yes.
so so much. It's
Oh my
so
god.
good. It's
I
so good. It's my favorite piece in the whole show.
I was
I
guessing.
did love. First of all, I think May had the best like looks, and it's just
Yeah.
because I sort of tend to go that way. Even though there was a lot of variety in the Jedi, it was still kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like they have
Yep.
the same silhouette and they have the same kind of vibe. Um, I loved all of Osha's changes. The Mechanic thing that everyone
Mhm.
went crazy for that
Yes.
vest. The vest is
So
amazing. I
that
love.
mechanic,
Yeah,
they must be watching Burgundy Squadron.
I know,
It
right? I mean,
just
come on.
come
Come on.
on.
Yeah. I love that it's a suede leather, because that's
Yes.
something that is not it's odd, you know?
Yeah, we don't see
Yeah.
that as much.
Yeah.
I loved the magnetic closures, like, you can tell that
Oh,
there's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
magnetic closures into that, and
Yeah.
then, like, yeah, that was very, I was like, "Oh, gotta do that to some of my
That
stuff."
was when we were watching the trailer.
Mhm.
That was one that I mentioned, that look, and I
Yes.
was like, "We see it for a split second, and it
Yes.
and it looks like she's some kind of, like, rebel or something," and then
Yeah.
yeah, that does get
Yes.
sort of adopted by
Mhm.
the rebels, yeah. Long
Totally.
jumpsuit, little vest, lot of
Mhm.
pockets, a
Yep.
lot of pouches.
Yeah, that cropped silhouette for
Yeah,
sure, and then, like, the rugged boots,
yeah.
hitting at the ankle, really classic look there.
But back to the poncho.
Yes, then the poncho hit.
Again, I just think, what I was getting a kick out of is, um, the idea that these ponchos are available, that they have this as their civilian, like, robe, or, they call it a civilian robe, but
Yeah.
so if you are under the protection of the Jedi, being transported by the Jedi or whatever, they give you one of these ponchos, like, sign me up.
I know.
Where do you wanna go? Where do you wanna go? I'll go wherever you
I'll
want.
drive.
Yeah. So I loved it that it wasn't something that she had, but something that she was given, and it seems like it's like a standard
Mm,
protocol, maybe to spot them visually. Who
yeah,
knows?
yeah,
That's not explained, but I like that they're like, give them civilian like,
yeah. And she's like, "Not the
yeah,
civilian poncho." Oh, no.
yeah,
I thought it was interesting. Did you look at some really close-up detail shots? Because it looked like the poncho and the pants are both quilted as well.
yeah,
Like, they
they are.
look like they're very, yeah, okay, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean,
they're
Cal
very
Kestis's
utilitarian.
poncho is
Is it
quilted
quilted as
as
well? Okay.
well. Well, just there's a panel at the top that's like
Yeah.
quilted that gives it a bit of weight, and just a bit of weight and sturdiness at the
Mhm.
top, and then lets the sort of the bottom kind of flow. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
quilting on a poncho has been seen. The one that I have, even though sort of minimal, has that. So it's a Cal Kestis style poncho, and
Inspired,
and
yeah,
there
yeah.
is there is a sort of quilting at the
Okay.
top that I added to it.
Okay, gotcha,
But when I
cool.
saw that one, I was like, I have to make that. I have something. Whoever's making it, message me. I don't send me one. I
Totally.
don't know. I'm kidding.
Billy will model
I'll
for
say.
you.
But yeah, that was my favorite piece. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I
nice.
see
Yeah, it
here,
was fantastic.
yeah, quilted pocket utilitarian, yeah. Ankle work boots. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And quilted pants. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't need those knee-high boots all the time. You can just get away with those
I don't have any.
more
Yeah.
comfy. Yep.
Don't
More
need them. Yeah.
there you go. I'm, like, looking through here. Okay, poncho time. So, then on to OSHA because they, like, switched, right? So then OSHA's wearing May's clothes. So she's got that, like, that gray loungewear is what I'm calling it, like the cold shoulder
Yeah.
loungewear, which to me, reminded me of Ray, like, 'cause she's got the
Yeah.
hood, she's got, like, the little cold shoulder look going on, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I liked that," and I was like, "This is actually something I would wear around the house."
Yeah. I
Like
think there's something to be said for downtime looks. I do it sometimes on obviously on my Insta, and there's got to be
Yeah,
downtime.
yeah. Well,
So I like seeing it on screen. Yeah.
I love that at the very beginning we saw OSHA in, like, a tank top and boxer shorts, really, like, right? Like, she's
Yeah.
waking up because she had had that dream, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Star Wars pajamas isn't all fancy Padme nightgowns.
No, no way. No one's got that kind of
Real people
money.
yeah, exactly. Real people wear tank tops and boxer shorts, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
But
very relatable.
it goes back to when we see Jango Fett in the prequels, and he's just
Mhm,
hanging around on
mhm.
Camino, and he's
Yep.
got like a shirt that's kind of like this. That's why I wore this today.
Yes, very nice.
Just as
Mhm.
like a, you know, uh, uh, my ship's off. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
some sleep.
Yeah, all your
Like
armor's off, like,
the
you're just
armor's off, the jackets are off. The blasters are put away.
yeah. Yeah, you can't be, like, badass and, like, ready for action all the time, even
No,
in a
there's
galaxy
no.
far, far away, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that look, and then she changes into this gorgeous charcoal outfit
yeah,
with, like, these really streamlined, like, cut and, like, a little wrap detail, which is so popular in Star Wars. It reminds me of a 1940s women's coat, and I looked
okay.
through and I'll share some stuff on our Instagram. It's a little different. It's a little more maybe sci-fi streamlined, but it definitely
Mhm.
like with the belt, with her shoulders kinda come out to this little point. Like, it's definitely you got like, look at those
I don't remember
shoulders.
that one.
Oh,
Yeah,
man. Oh, man, it popped out to me right away, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like you coulda seen Judy Garland wearing a jacket that had the same
yeah,
silhouette as this." So I thought that was a really interesting it just felt like there were so many eras kind of being pulled to give different feelings to different
yeah.
outfits. And I feel like
Well,
she
she
put
really
that on.
had yeah, they both really had a lot of changes of clothes, like,
Yeah,
then.
yeah, which was fun. I really
Yeah.
liked that.
Oh, yeah, oh, who you're talking to here, like, look
Yeah,
who you're
I know.
talking to, like, what character's got 5 different looks and counting, like, I feel bad, I'm like, "Should I split these off?" And it's like, "No, it's the same guy, though."
Yeah,
Like,
right, right.
yeah.
I am actually, a little tangent. I'm in the middle of getting ready to go to this HealthIcon little
Oh,
convention
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
October, and I'm designing, like, a cover story for my OC, so I'm playing a different person, and
Oh,
so
okay.
we'll have to talk about it. So I'm, like, very
Very
much
cool.
I am, like, trying to branch off into another look, and I'm having trouble with it. So it is very interesting to watch these characters who can put on something that's very different, and you're like, "Oh, wow,
Yeah,
that's" yeah. So I thought that coat was just really fascinating,
yeah,
in its simplicity and just I'm curious, like, I'd love to yeah, I'd love to find out if the designer pulled some inspiration from, like, the 1940s
yeah.
silhouettes. But, so if we've talked about the Jedi, we gotta
Let's
talk
go
about
to
the
the witches.
witches.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the part that I was like I, like, saw Mother Anastasia, and I'm like, "I'm in love with you, just sign me up now." Like, I
Yeah,
want
I
to
mean,
join your group. Like, just take me. Take me in.
hands
Um,
down, I think some of the best
oh
looking,
my
like,
god.
Star Wars characters, period. Like,
Yes. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I'm just like, wow. I was really blown away by that group. And of course, like my big thing is like I'm trying to figure out what that fabric is. 'Cause
right.
I'm just like,
Well,
it's
what's
gorgeous.
funny is that the costume designer specifically for, Mother Anastasia,
Mm.
she was like did you read that part where she's like, "You're gonna have trouble with this
Oh my
one,"
god,
like
yes. Oh wait, I even wrote it down. What was it?
yeah. Oh, did
Oh yes.
you?
Okay. So like first of all, the witches, they have that gorgeous deep purple, which kind of changes a little bit in the light. Not
Yeah.
sure if it's like a synthetic or if it could, oh, please, dear God, just be a stretch corduroy, which is easier to find.
I think
But,
it might be. Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, so many
Yeah.
people
Well,
are
who
coming
knows?
at me saying I think it's a lighter weight, but we'll see. I've got a couple fabric swatches actually
Yeah.
already ordered to test,
Okay.
but, I love so this robe has, like, a hood and a
Mhm.
cowl neck. I'm a cowl neck
Mhm.
person. I love how cozy they are. So you get the
Yeah.
best of both worlds, like, you can pull it up and you can still be cozy. I am so in love, and it's secretive, like, they've got an underdress, they've got 2 different layers to that overrobe if you look at it. There's, like,
Mhm.
an underdress, an overrobe, and then almost like the cloak over top of it with
Mhm.
all those layers. It's just gorgeous. I love it, and then those little, like, leather fingerless gloves, and
Mhm.
then on Mother Anastasia, and she mentions in the article, the front of her dress, because we see this gorgeous detail that
Mhm.
sets her aside, like, sets her apart, makes her stand out from the rest. And the quote is, "Perhaps the most notable, this center panel of Anastasia's gown was a small remnant of fabric that Brian found in a shop on one of her first days on the production. The netted fabric covered in tiny cowrie shells and bugle beads will be a challenge for cosplayers looking to replicate the look in screen accurate detail." And after that, in
Mhm.
the notes, I just put, "Checkmate."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm
Thanks.
just
Okay. So you helped us out on some
yeah,
and did
I
some
know.
kind of simple ones. But then we're like, you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
trouble with
This is
this
like
one.
it
Yeah.
reminds me of Padme's wedding gown, because Padme's wedding gown was made
Right.
out of a bedspread, right? A lace bedspread that was found in
Right.
Italy and then,
Yeah.
like, dyed and hacked up and all that. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, good luck on finding this one piece of
Yeah, the
remnant
exact
fabric that was"
one thing, yeah.
gosh
What I
darn
will
it.
say about, like, groups like these that are brand new and we're seeing almost a new silhouette, a new sort of, language, or, let's say new words to add to the language, the visual language of Star Wars. What I love is groups where you can then build your own. Like, you
Mhm.
don't have to do Anasaya's.
Yeah.
You can you can maybe make that overcloak and some other
Mhm.
pieces, and then, like, make your own character that's part of this coven of witches.
This is
And
my
I do
plan.
love yeah, I do love groups of characters that are like that. Like the
Yes.
rebels. What are
Yeah.
rebel you can create your own. I mean, we have. So,
Yes.
um
Join us.
that's what I like. I think that's why I stray
Yeah.
away from, like, named characters because I do love an archetype of a character that you can then bring your own sort of thing
Yeah.
to, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, then, when we look, because it is a group, we see some of their faces, right? But it
Mhm.
does also lead that ability of like, "Oh, I'm just gonna plop my OC down in this little group."
Yeah.
Um, and they were there all the time. I do love that. And I love, like, that we see these witches working as well. We're not just seeing the
Mhm.
ceremonial robes, but the little shot of the twins coming into, like, their little stronghold is one of the other things I just got so excited. I mean, I was spending so much time looking at screenshots yesterday. It's another really, like, medieval nod. So these beautiful overdress, like, they're kinda wearing skirts and, like, a top or, like, a dress underneath it, and then they have this garment wrapped around them that looks like a Scottish airsaid. So a Scottish airsaid
Mm.
is, um so back when, like, great kilts were worn in Scotland, right, which was literally just a length of fabric that was pleated, a belt was run under it, you lay down, you fold it around you.
Yeah.
So the Airsaid was the female version. So it was really this big rectangle of fabric that was belted around the waist. Sometimes you let the top hang down, sometimes you pulled it up over your shoulders, sometimes you could pull it up as a cloak. And I was looking at this and I'm like, that's what you're wearing. That's what
Yeah.
that's what this is. And it's in Star Wars, and it just made me so excited because, like, we, like, see these little cultural pieces, and I'm like, "Oh my god, there's a Scottish
Yeah.
cultural piece, yay!" And I love the colors in that scene, in those, like, workwear clothes.
Yeah, I
Were
think what I
gorgeous.
love is that you see a community. So you
Yeah.
see their different sort of, when they're at work, they wear something different, and maybe there's a hierarchy there as well, where
Mm.
the higher up you go, obviously you're not
Yeah.
wearing things like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
you see that in Mother Anastasia and Mother Coral, because Mother Anastasia comes in and her, like, I'm gonna call it an Arisaid for lack of a better word, is this beautiful woven tapestry almost, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's clearly got we don't see a lot of patterns. We've talked about that, like you and I, if we haven't talked about it on here, but we see stripes with the witches. We see diamonds in the patterns. We see
Yeah.
she's got a whole bunch of funky stuff going on in that shawl, in that Arisade, which was so exciting because I was just like, oh, it gives us this very folk like feeling,
Yeah.
this like rural community. We're making our own stuff. I loved that. I
Yeah.
got so
Absolutely.
excited. Yeah. In that same scene, we see Osha and May as children when they're kind of in that stronghold, and I loved those brick colored tunics they were wearing. Did you
Yeah.
notice those? They have like the raw edges, those
Hmm.
like kind of fringe, and just the cut reminded me again very Viking or like 13 or 1400s, with the low boot, the legging, kind of like the way their skirt is kind of flaring out a little bit, and it was just
Yeah.
like, another nod to like this time when we do think of like harvesting your own foods and
Hmm.
woodworking and making things you needed, and I was like, oh yeah, that was the image that they were trying to give. These witches were very secluded,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I was like, it just totally came across by, I think, these costume decisions. It was fantastic. I loved it.
It felt like they had a great command for like the stuff that they were making for themselves,
Mhm,
garments, but also that they were making
mhm.
them for themselves, you know?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
I think what I got the most,
Yeah.
that they were a community, self-sufficient, and
Yeah.
didn't really need anyone
And
from the
then the
outside. Yeah.
Jedi had to waltz in.
Yeah. Look, we've been talking about this a lot, like in the Discord at our
Same.
spoilers thing, and also in the chat. And what I do love, what I do love that this show did, right? It's not my favorite show, you
Oh,
know. I don't think it. We won't get into that, but I don't think it deserves the hate that it was getting. I think
no.
people are
Yeah. No.
overreacting. It isn't my favorite, but what I do love, and what I've been saying again and again, is that like I think an infallible hero as well as an irredeemable villain are boring.
Mhm.
So if you can throw in a bit of gray in the mix, you know, and have your heroes be flawed and have your villains have also redeeming qualities, um, I think that's very interesting. And I
Mhm.
think that's what, I think that's what this show did very well. That you were kind of rooting for the quote unquote bad guys, but
Mhm.
um, also kind of very suspicious of
Yeah.
the quote unquote good guys.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Totally. Well,
and
then let's talk about the bad guy, like, because
perfect segue.
we haven't talked about him yet, right?
Perfect segue. Get your bingo cards out because this is a shout out for
Or
Midway Rebel. I think he was asking for one, wasn't he? Anyway, you
I don't know,
punch
but
that
I can't
one.
believe we haven't said his name yet.
I think we did. I think
Um,
we did. I think we
okay.
have.
I was gonna say we had to.
Um,
But yeah, Toothy McToothface, trademarked to Midran Rebel.
Toothy McToothface. Yeah, it's great. I did find out about the mask that it's because obviously everyone's making the mask now,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
we've got a really good look at it. Um, but what that is, it's obviously not teeth, but it's definitely made to look like
Yeah.
a very menacing grin.
Is it like
But
a
it's
tube?
they're tubes. Yeah,
Okay, that's what I
they're
was
some
thinking.
kind
Okay.
of like breathing tubes
Yeah.
or something. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
And that it did that. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that I found, because I was poring over screenshots of that helmet last night, which
Yeah.
so first of all, I have to say, this helmet scares the shit out of me.
It's very
Like,
scary.
it's
Yeah.
scarier than Vader and it's scarier than Ren for me.
Yeah.
I was
It's
poring
the
over.
teeth.
It's the
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
very
It's the
creepy.
teeth.
Yeah.
But there's 2 things that really stand out to me in this. Okay, maybe there's 3 things that really stand out to me other than the teeth. First of all, the shape of it really reminds me of, and now did I write down the era or not? Like in no, of course not. So
Salad, mid 15th
yes, yes, oh, I
century.
did. Yeah, the shape is reminiscent of a sallet, which was one of the styles of a knight's helmet in the mid 15th century. So like it
I
was
wasn't
used
getting that
throughout
so
Europe.
much.
You
Yeah.
weren't getting that? Oh, I was like,
I was
wait, it
definitely
kinda
getting
comes from the
more
back.
samurai because they've
Mm,
always been
'cause they
samurai, and
always wanted a samurai. Yeah.
they have that, they have that mullet kind of
Yes.
situation that's, business in the front, party in the back, right? They're always longer in the back. Vader
Yep.
was like that. When we
Vader
saw
was like
Kylo
that.
Ren, it was still very much like that, and this one is very similar to the shape
Yeah,
of Kylo Ren's.
it is.
So, I think helmets of that era, and that's like, it's sort of same eras, just different places.
Yes.
I think a helmet is a helmet, and
Yeah.
you kind of
They
the functionality has to be
Yeah,
what.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, like, the form and the function definitely
Yeah.
were, you protect the back of your neck, right? Like, humans have known that
Yes.
for a long time, for
Yeah.
sure. It just reminded me of that, with the grills, like, because, like, right, a lot of, like, European knights had that grill that kinda I'm probably using the wrong word, that,
I
like, you
was
would
seeing
lift up.
the, and I don't know the word for it, but the faces
Yeah.
on samurai helmets.
Samurai helmets?
That's
Yeah, yeah.
sort of what I was
Okay,
that.
definitely. Well, the
Uh,
other thing that stood out to me is that it's not black.
yeah, that was
It's
really
actually,
interesting,
like,
right?
a dark coppery color, which I
Mhm.
thought was really because we've seen these black helmets be such a prevalent and even, like, I know he doesn't use a helmet, but Darth Maul's face was black and red, right? Like, we
Yeah.
have this color coding, right, of, like, the
Right.
bad guys, and, like, yes, his leather which she went into detail about that shroud,
Yeah.
right, in that article, was black, but, like, that helmet, so you caught these different lights. I just
Mhm.
thought that that was fascinating, and, like, highlighting on all the scars, and you see him repairing it at that one point,
Mhm.
which I he might be my favorite bad guy, like, which is kinda crazy because, like you said, this wasn't my favorite show ever.
Yeah.
This wasn't Andor for me, which Andor is, like, the top shelf. I still loved it, but, like, he might be my favorite bad guy,
I
which is
think Manny
crazy.
Jacinto, like, I think he did an incredible job, I
He
think.
did. He d
Yeah.
And then when I watched that, there was, like, a short little interview that Star Wars had on, like, their, social media, I think yesterday or the day before, where he had come from a dance background, and I was like, "Yeah!
Okay.
I love you even more."
Also, he's been doing comedy, which I
Oh,
think, because he was in, The Good Place.
okay.
Have you ever seen that? Yeah, it's, it's a bit,
I've not
really
seen it, but
funny
I know what
comedy.
it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And people always hold, in movies and TV shows, people always hold drama in very high regard. I kind
Mm.
of hold comedy in a very high regard. I think there's a much more of a technical aspect to it. There's timing to it. There's delivery to it. Not everyone can do comedy, and I think a lot of people can do drama. So when you bring someone that's done comedy to to do a very dramatic piece, I think it always works really well. I mean,
Mm.
um, I think the way he played it was very charismatic for how
Yeah,
quote unquote evil he was supposed to be, and I think that comes from that a little bit.
I could
I
see
think
that.
his sort of wink and nod, especially in the earlier episodes, he's kind of playing this like, you know, kind of doofus, like, oh, I don't know. And he's like,
Mhm.
what, when he's talking about Yord, like, where did you come from? And he's like, he's not with you, like
Yeah, yeah.
things like that. And the line, which I don't know, everyone kind of rips on this line, but the line where he's like, "Oh, why would you show your face?" And he's like, "I did bring a mask."
Yeah,
Like, and the
it's
way
like,
he says it,
I
it's
thought
I
of
thought
that.
it was perfect. Yeah, just a
I also
perfect amount of comedy in there, which I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
heightens the drama.
I think you're right. And, like, it makes it that multifaceted bad
Mhm.
guy as well.
It's
There was,
deeper.
yeah, there was
Yeah,
this one, there and, we won't dissect the whole show, but there was this
yeah,
one little split-second scene in that last episode, I think, where Saul is talking to one or both of the girls, I can't remember, and he's in the background, in the back corner, just kinda, like, looking down and, like, kinda shuffling his feet, like, fly on the wall, like, "This is awkward," and
yeah.
I was like, "Oh my
That's
god."
that's his, like, comedic
Yeah,
bones, like,
totally, and I was like, I don't know if anyone else caught that little moment, but I loved it, and I was just like, "Oh, that's hilarious," like, "Oh, well, gee," like, "Wish I
it's very
wasn't here right
charming,
now."
there's a bit of cockiness to
Yeah,
it, like, it's
yeah.
just, you end up rooting for him a bit, I
Totally.
did,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely, no, for sure, I did as well, which is funny because I hate Kylo Ren in a good way, and because I think that
Okay.
that means, like, he did such a good job with that character, but he
Right.
is so and I mean, you can see that Chimera is manipulative as well, but, like, Kylo Ren was like a spoiled, bratty rich kid manipulative, which I
Yeah.
really hated, and this guy is kind of a, like, you don't really know where he's from, but you can tell he's kinda like he's a scavenger himself, right? Like he's kind of like scraping some stuff, making some stuff up as he goes along,
Yeah.
and I like it a little bit more. But and so yeah, so I think that they're two different bad guys. I don't
Kylo's a
know.
very, like, broody
He
teenager. Like,
is,
he's
which
just like,
drives me
"Ugh, get out of my
crazy.
room." Like,
I
yeah.
know.
"Get out of my room." Like, "What do you
Totally,
mean?" He's always breaking
totally.
stuff. Like, he's always like,
And I think he's supposed to be. I think he's
He
supposed to be,
is.
right? I think
He
you're
is.
supposed to show, like yeah, everything from, like, him copying his grandfather's helmet to, like, having these daddy issues, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's
He's a
the rich kid
legacy of
that
some sort. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's, like,
And
fallen on him, and this kid is, like comes from nowhere, oughta we don't know who he is, like, he
mm,
has no background that we know of, but,
he's got nothing to
yeah, I think
lose, so he's got nothing
yes.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. So, yeah, and I really did love what I was reading that he did a lot of his own stunts,
Yeah.
and he like, his comment about, like, "Well, better do this now, like,
Yeah.
before I can't." And how
Which
they were
brings
talking
me
about
to,
the
like,
rope needed to move.
yeah, which brings me to, like, the costume piece that everyone was going crazy about, um, the arms, which
Yeah,
I think were made with
that's a
100% human.
yes. That's a I was gonna say we should talk about the arms because that's a costuming choice, right? We
It
don't
is, it
see
very much
a lot
is.
of bare arms in Star Wars costuming.
I think it was, an episode or 2 ago where I was like, "You either have sleeves or you got no sleeves. There's nothing in between. I don't wanna see short sleeves anywhere. Like, you either got them or you don't." And they followed that rule, and I love them for it.
Yes.
It was great, it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it played in the character. It was the right silhouette for that character and that actor,
Mhm.
and it made sense. And I think I have mentioned before is like I think the only time we've seen like the sleeveless like arms look is back in the old droid cartoons,
Right,
right?
right,
It's like
right.
in the 80s when everyone was
Perfect.
sleeveless and arms, right?
Yeah. It's like
So
a
yeah,
weird
I
aerobics video
and I
gone wrong, that Droids cartoon.
that was my first droids and Ewoks were my first foray into Star Wars. As like a
Okay.
three-year-old, I was hooked on them
Okay.
as a little kid. So
Oh,
this
that's
is why I
sweet, yeah.
remember. This explains a lot, doesn't it? But yeah, yeah, I think that the one thing I loved was how well the costumes helped tell part of these characters' stories.
Yeah,
So I think they nailed that.
yeah. And came here at the beginning, you could tell that something was
Yeah.
off. Like,
Yep.
I think it was I think it was very well hinted at without sort of, outright saying it. It was telegraphed a bit, but I don't think that that's a negative. Like, he was a sort of shady character,
Mhm.
He was kind of like peeking around a corner.
Yeah.
There were hints to the viewer, early on about the poison that he gives May to go, kill,
Mhm.
Beardy McBeardface, whatever his name is.
I believe you are
young
referring
young young Ryan Phillippe with a beard
yeah.
or whatever his name is.
Corbin, I believe. Was it
Oh yeah, that's
Corbin?
it. That's
Yes.
that's him. It was probably my least favorite character.
I
Um,
yeah,
and there was just nothing to him. I think he was kind of an empty vessel of a Jedi,
yeah,
just a person to be sort of manipulated. I think.
yeah,
Anyway, um, yeah, even a clue, even in the poison that he makes for her to use was a throwback to something that they have, where they were growing up, which
it
is
was the
that
tree,
tree that they
right?
always play. Yeah,
Mhm,
where they
yeah,
always play. I forget the name of that poison at the moment,
yeah,
but it's the same. It's the same. So it was telegraphed, and I think he was always very shady. I don't know. I very much
yeah,
enjoyed what he did. I think
yeah,
he like head and shoulders above everybody else really showed up for this
yeah,
for
yeah,
the show. Yeah,
yeah. I loved him. I loved May and Osha. I thought those 3 characters were really,
yeah,
really well done. So it was an exciting foray into something different in Star Wars, and I
yeah,
really I really enjoyed that. I always enjoy right? Like, I was the one telling my friends, "No, no, watch more than 1 episode of Andor, please." Like, you need
yeah,
to keep going, right? Yes, I get
yeah.
that this is different, but this is, like is exciting, so Yeah, when it gives us
There's
more
something for
variety.
everyone, I think,
Exactly,
in Star
exactly,
Wars.
yeah.
People
You
were
don't love it.
really excited, like, about this show to see, like,
Yeah,
Jedi. Um, I'm not particularly a fan of, like, Jedi. I think maybe when I was younger,
yeah.
maybe when I started, like, this whole cosplay, like,
Mhm.
journey, years ago, like, I think that was just a no-brainer, like, "Oh, like, a Jedi, I'll do a Jedi." Eventually, I
Mhm.
probably will.
Yep.
You've seen some of the, like, sort of flat lay sketching that I've done for one that I've been working on for ages. But as a group, I don't know, they've always been very goody-goody, and that's a little bit boring to me.
Yeah,
So with this show kind of subverting them a little bit, I thought that
mhm,
was really cool.
yeah,
And that there could be kind of a nefarious or even mean streak in
yeah,
them, I thought was very interesting. So
yeah,
to say you don't like the show, okay, that's fine. But there's definitely interesting themes
mhm,
happening in it, and
yeah.
worth a look.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
thought provoking. I'm the same way as, like, a couple years ago, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make Jedi robes now," and then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, "I really identify as a Jedi. I'm
yeah,
not into the really strict organized religions." Like, I'd
yeah.
rather a blaster at my side. Yeah, for sure, yeah, but it was interesting to see that narrative kinda turned on its head and kinda like, "Well, what if? Have we examined it from this angle?" Yeah, I enjoyed
Just
that.
what they were trying to do in The Last Jedi, and I think of the sequels, I think that's probably my favorite, and the one that was
Mhm.
trying to do something, and I will always respect someone taking a big swing,
Mhm.
uh, if you think they missed or really, like, hit, that's an opinion, but
Mhm.
I really respect, especially in this very established kind of universe. Anyone
Mhm.
coming in and taking a big swing, I respect that. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, changing it up, giving us something new. It's
yeah,
and it's I was saying as well, like, it still gave me, like, about half an hour to 40 minutes a week where I got to suspend my disbelief and just go ahead and live in a different universe, like, immerse myself in a
yeah,
different universe visually, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm sitting on the couch, I'm here for it." So
yeah.
and the costuming made me happy.
Great.
So
I
happy.
did predict it. I did predict that, like, we were gonna see Denizen in that one scene, and that's
Yes.
it. And that's okay. We got a
Yes.
lot. I feel like we
Well,
got a
I'm
very,
gonna
like,
consider the witches. We got a little witches denizens look, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they're
right.
witches, but we did get that little glimpse of their life,
Right,
which
I like seeing the variety. I like
I
seeing
did too.
seeing
I
s like, s I like seeing street style.
Yes, yes, the street vendors is where we're at. Dear
Yeah.
Lucasfilm, please
That
give
well,
us
there was
something just about street vendors.
there were well, that was, that was Andor. I mean, all of Ferrex
Well,
is
true, true.
um,
He's smart.
there were some sort of different things in the Coruscant scenes,
Mhm,
in
mhm.
the background, but I feel
Yeah,
like it was so fast,
yes.
because we were focused on the Jedi stories that they're
Yeah,
very, very much in the background, but there's some other stuff in there that's really
yeah,
interesting, I think.
yeah,
So they did do some.
yeah, definitely. So,
Yeah,
alright.
that's
Well,
the
we will
Acolyte.
be that's the Acolyte. We'll be sharing, like, a few of these, like, images on our Instagram to kinda show a little bit more of what we were talking about, especially, that 1940s cut coat. I can't wait to show you.
I
I think
would
that's where the inspiration
I
was
would
from.
love for you to do since you did so much work on this and thank you so much.
I
I
couldn't
read the
stop.
article and then I read your notes and I was like, "Okay, I know where we're going." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. But I'd love, if you could do a post, little
Yeah.
carousel, like side by side stuff, I
Mhm.
think that would be fantastic. So
Totally.
if you wanna, listen along and flip through that,
Yeah,
you can find that at Off the Rack Rebellion on Instagram
yeah, coming
and
soon.
or on your Instagram, wherever you're gonna put
Yeah.
that up. Um, and where would they find you for that?
Yes, well, I'm Kate Ryder. I am at one Scavenger's Wardrobe, underscores between the words. And Billy, where can folks find you?
I'm Billy Maddox over on Instagram. That's at Billy Maddox. No spaces, no nothing.
Just keep it simple, keep it sweet.
Simple.
And you can find both of us at Off the Rack Rebellion. We do have periods between the words. So we're on Instagram. Quick thank you to the Dad Batch for hosting us and Raimi for being our producer.
Absolutely.
And yeah, absolutely. So just remember that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away can be right here and right now. Thanks for joining us.